Good day, everyone. My name is Kyle Paul, and welcome to Between the Brackets. This month on our show, I'm joined by Lynn Langit, who's a Google Cloud GDE, and we will be talking about all kinds of awesome Google Cloud stuff, like the new Cloud Innovators Program, how to become a Google Cloud GDE, learning about how to where to learn some awesome new stuff about becoming cloud architect, and all kinds of great Google Cloud learning resources and fun stuff like that. So as a reminder, this is a live show with real experts talking about fun and exciting niche developer topics. Feel free to invite others to tune in. Go ahead and invite them. Make sure to also ask your questions in the live YouTube chat over here on the side. We will try to do our best to bring all of those questions on stage to have Lynn answer them for all of you. And so don't forget to do that. If you want to learn more about the GDE program and such like that, we have lots of opportunity to ask Lynn these questions. And don't forget to fill out our survey either now or at the end of the episode to let us know what topics you want to see next, and or what you thought of this episode. We'd love to have your feedback and ways we can help provide more exciting information for all of you. And with that, I'd like to welcome Lynn to the stage. Welcome. Hey, Lynn.
Hello.
How's it going?
Great. How are you doing?
Great. Awesome. So thank you so much for joining us this month. We'd love to learn a lot about your background and how you became a Cloud GDE, and a lot of the offerings and stuff that because you're also a cloud educator as well. And so we'd love to tap into that. So let us know a little bit about your background and who you are and what is Lynn, or who is Lynn.
I am an independent cloud architect and developer. I run my own company. And as part of those building efforts, I educate. And I educate both broadly through the LinkedIn Learning platform and other platforms, as well as specifically. I've been working a lot in bioinformatics recently, and I've created domain-specific content for cloud for bioinformatics.
Awesome. Very cool. And so your GDE experience with that, so a lot of the stuff that you were doing out in the community is what kind of helped highlight your expertise in that space. And we have a little fun data fact. You are the very first GDE in the whole program. So can you tell us, so the program's been around for a few years now. And so can you tell us a little bit about what that experience has been like and the evolution of that program?
Sure, you bet. So I was very fortunate in that when I was writing about some of my work on the Google Cloud platform, some members of the Google DevRel team reached out to me way back when, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, and said that they were going to create the Google Developer Expert Program, and they'd like to invite me to be the initial person. And I said, what does this entail? And why would I want to do this? And so I found it to be a really enriching experience for my technical career. Specifically, I get a really close connection to members of the product group, so it helps me to stay on top of all the new releases. But also, as the program's grown from just me to, I don't know, Kyle, how many people are in it now?
Globally, there's right around 800.
Yeah, to 800. It's been a fantastic situation to be part of this growing technical community. And these folks are people who are using the Google Cloud and other Google products day in and day out. And so they're a great resource when I've got tough technical challenges.
Definitely. So not only has it provided you a platform to continue to share your expertise out there, but it's that network, that community, to where if you have a question, you know who to ask now. And but then you also get those insights from Google. Hey, we need help testing, beta testing this product, or you work with consumers. Can you provide some feedback on what they would think on this kind of thing? Is that?
Oh my gosh, I've tested so many products. I joke around that I don't even know how many NDAs I have. I have to, check before I talk. But it's really you know, mutually beneficial. I mean, obviously, I'm helping Google in the development of their products, but I'm also being the voice of my customer, because I always say, as an independent cloud architect, I don't work for Google, I don't work for any of the competitors, I work for my customer. And it's so satisfying to do product feedback and then to see improvements get into the products that my customers want and get launched and know about them and be able to bring them to my customers. I mean, it's just like this nice feedback loop, you know?
Definitely. So with that, so you have that ability to kind of share in your sphere of influence, and with that, we talked about how you became a cloud GDE, and then how you help to continue to influence your sphere of the sphere around you. What would it take to become a cloud GDE? Like, anybody who's tuning in, if they're interested, you know, what would it take to become a cloud GDE?
Well, that's more on you than me, since I've been it for 6 years and I just kind of
Yes.
keep doing the same thing. But what I've been, the way I run my consultancy, I think in general leads me to the partner programs, and which is really summarized in 3 words: learn, build, and teach. So I feel compelled whenever I figure anything out that works and provides value for my clients, when I can, to share it. And so I'll share it through GitHub code, I'll share it through Medium articles, I'll share it through YouTube videos. And as an independent, that also has a side benefit of, it's like a marketing for me. So it works really well. So I guess the real simple way to do it is build things and talk about them, share what you've done.
Definitely, yeah, and that's a great point, and I think, yes, there's all the requirements that I'm aware of, but yeah, having you share it, I think, helps to w- help others relate a little bit more to what are things that I can do to become a cloud GDE, or just to become a GDE in general. So, just sharing your knowledge out there with the broader community. As you said, the Medium blog post, creating learning content, such like code labs and stuff. It's a great way to help share your expertise back out there with the community.
Well, one thing
Um,
too is, because I work with a lot of junior people these days, because I've been doing this for a while. And so, it's intimidating to say, well, I'm going to do this big, huge thing. So I would also say make it really small. Another platform that I've put quite a lot of content out there, I consider it like a micro blogging, is dev.to.
hmm,
And I aim for like a 3 to 5 minute, it's almost like a tip site. I mean, it can be something else, but a lot of times when I'm working with a person and we come across something and works well, I say, okay, we should put that on dev.to. And it's a good way to start, because when you are first starting to share your content, it's intimidating, right? It's like, well, is this that great? Or am I sure this is right? And you have imposter syndrome all the time.
hmm,
Everybody does, even me, all the time. I mean, you do, right? And so a tip I have is to make things short. Even speaking, like you could do a 5 minute talk or a 10-minute talk. Another thing is to do it with somebody else. One of the things is, when I work with apprentices, as I often do, I will often co-author to get them out there, to get their voices out there, because, I think that we all benefit from the more sharing that we do. And so I kind of like try to nurture that. And so that's, if you're junior, try to pair with somebody who's more senior. If you're senior, try to bring somebody along with you.
definitely, that's a great idea, and we've seen a lot of success in that. With the pair blogging, or guest blogging is another term for that, where you're inviting somebody onto your channel, if you
Mhm.
will, to share their content and help amplify their voice. So that's definitely great ideas and ways to work together to help uplift each other. That's the big important part. Um, so through this Google Cloud GDE journey, there's been an evolution of the program. What has the impact been like for you, and how have you seen it grow?
Well, when I first started, it was very siloed, I think, yeah,
Mm,
and that's not to be expected. Like, the cloud GDEs really didn't talk to the Firebase GDEs or the other product groups. And one of the things, it's been a while since we had live events, but when we had live events, I would always try to go to the other, like go to Android, for example, because I don't do Android, and having this growing ecosystem allows me to learn more about, Google kind of across the spectrum, which is often what my customers want. So like I might have to hire somebody who's an Android developer. And so if I can go to a GDE event and I can talk with Android GDEs and I can learn quickly a lot about that. So it's kind of like, product excellence across the stack, which has been really, really good. The other thing is bringing on other people. Another program from Google that I've been involved in throughout the years is Women Tech Makers. Obviously, women in tech. I want to bring more women, and so recently we did a thing where like I was mentoring a gal, and several people that went through that I think became GDEs. So that was we mentored them how not to do technical speaking, and it was fun.
Mhm.
I mean, it was really, really fun to combine these different programs. Another one is the Google's student developer groups, so university students, and kind of like get more people kind of going along this path of sharing so that they can get to the point where they're got expertise and they can be a GDE. Because it's not like you just wake up one morning and you're like, hey, I'm an expert. It doesn't kind of go that way.
Definitely. Yeah, and I think the program that you mentioned, like the Women Developers Academy, where you helped mentor other women developers in technical speaking and technical content presentation. So yes, we did have a handful that did become GDEs out of it. So that's very awesome that we helped continue their journey towards becoming the Google Developer Expert. But yeah, so just the GDE as a silo, how we've changed that to where it's definitely interfacing a lot more with the other communities, whether it's Google developer groups, Google developer student clubs, and helping to show that journey on how to share their expertise. And I think that was one of the big learnings that we had out of the Women Developer Academy, that the name experts in the program kind of does that imposter syndrome a little bit, because I don't know if I'm an expert. Well, it's like, no, you're showcasing your expertise, that this and you're sharing that expertise. It doesn't necessarily mean you know everything in and out, that you could be the engineer for the product. It's sharing your expertise back out there with the community via talks, via blog, and so forth. So I think that was a huge impactful thing that came out of it. And so with that, that journey of the program, one thing that I know about you as well is that you haven't always been a developer, or you haven't always identified being a cloud architect. So can you take us a little bit on your tech journey?
Sure. I mean, I've had several careers. Initially, I had an academic bent. I didn't have the resources to really follow that, but my education is in linguistics, and I have a lifelong hobby of learning human languages. Right now, just as an aside, I'm brushing up on my Norwegian.
Oh,
So yeah, it's not gonna. Anyway, so then the middle phase was I worked in business world for a while and had some good success. I was the vice president of a company when I was 28 years old, but I didn't enjoy that. And as part of it, I got interested in technology. I've always been kind of that person who likes to watch the science show, but I never really had the educational opportunities. And then the things kind of collided. When I decided to start having a family, I wanted to go from being the vice president of a company to have more constrained work, because I was working 80 to 100 hours a week, and I wanted to. So I had little time with my new baby. So
family is very important.
yeah. So I switched into tech, and that baby is now 22 years old, and that was about the time that I really got into tech, and I started teaching, and I started really kind of mid-career, and it was good. I think that stays with me. That's why I have that learn, build, teach, because although I am not a young person, I've been in tech a short period of time, so I can identify that way. And I started in teaching, and then I wanted to find out what was the best compensated part of tech, and people told me it was writing code. And so I started writing code when I was 38 years old, pregnant with my daughter. And yes, if you're wondering, she also can code, of course. But Yeah, and then I discovered a love for data. And then I actually worked at Microsoft for a while, way back in the day, and wrote 3 books on SQL Server, and left there, and then came into the world of big data. And to this day, that has been my career trajectory. I still can code, but I'm not traditionally trained, and I would probably more hire developers to do, the big parts of the coding. Um, I have been focusing on high volume data pipelines in human health, bioinformatics by choice. And again, lifelong learning. I got into that like 5 years ago because a friend of mine got cancer and I wanted to make an impact. And it's been really exciting this last couple of years with COVID, because my clients that were doing cancer research are doing COVID research, and the data volumes have just poof. There's some of the biggest data volumes in the world. So I don't know. I mean, it's kind of an all over the place. I have a lot of things I'm interested in, and I'm a lifelong learner, and I'm sort of undaunted in terms of what I think I can take on, which is maybe I'm overconfident. I don't know, but I,
No,
I, I share.
yeah, and I think that's definitely something to appreciate, being that lifelong learner, but then also giving back at the same time, because you're helping to educate and uplift others. So that's a huge important part. And one of the things that I think is helpful in continuing to learn is to help share your knowledge back out there, because as you're sharing, you're learning yourself on oh, this is a new project, or this is a new way of doing it that I hadn't seen before. So by sharing, you open up that conversation. So I definitely agree there. And so with that, and again, reminder, anybody tuning in, feel free to ask your questions for Lynn over in the chat, and we'll make sure to bring them up on screen for her. But so with you mentioned you transitioned later on in your career, and so what sort of resources helped you get up to speed? I mean, you mentioned that you're now talking about bioinformatics. I mean, that's like going from not having a classically trained developer background to now you're leading talks on bioinformatics. So like seems like a huge jump. So what did you do to bridge that gap?
Well, this is kind of a little joke, but I haven't had a television in my entire adult life. And so all those hours that people watch TV, I spend studying, because the world is endlessly fascinating to me. And, I mean, it's not just bioinformatics. I mean, my career has evolved from, building data warehouses in OLAP cubes to building, event-driven streaming serverless pipelines on the cloud. I mean, I don't know, it just keeps evolving, right? I mean, it just keeps going as technology changes. And I've worked in many domains. I lived in California for many years, and I did ad tech. And then I did a lot of fintech in New York and London and Hong Kong, because those are some of the highest volume data pipelines. And once I discovered data, I kind of was so fascinating. I had this little foray into learning TensorFlow, where I had to go and learn all the math that I never had, because I never really had enough math. So I learned calculus at 51 and linear algebra, at 52 from Khan Academy, and 3 blue, 1 brown, because you can't do TensorFlow unless you understand these things, right? And my
Very true.
customers needed it. So again, I kind of just, the common thread is, where is the interesting work? Where is the impactful work? And where do I have, customers? Because obviously I have to make a living. And then I'll just figure out the rest.
Yeah, make the connections.
Yeah.
What do I need to do to get there?
Yeah. I'm a big proponent of lean startup and minimum viable. In the data world, I call it minimum viable pipeline or minimum viable report. And you just go out there and find out, like, what is the information that you need to have for your business, and where is it? Okay, and how are we going to get it so you can make it usable? So I have this practicality that drives my technology implementation, and I don't really care like what language or what paradigm or what, I want to do the simplest possible thing that works always.
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah, especially, now that you've figured out your path and, well, mostly because it's just like all these other fun things that you're just like, oh, I want to learn this. I want to learn this. So how do you focus in on that kind of thing? Is it does it relate back to what your customers are looking for, or is it really your interest? Like, I want to learn this so this way I can then offer it to my customers. How do you approach it?
Yeah, it's both. I mean, I have to make a living, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so like it depends on what my financial goals are, but I'm a very the one thing the business career did teach me is a metric driven sort of approach to things that are important to me. And so, in terms of finances, it literally comes down to coloring the hours on my calendar. Green is like billable time, light green is like going to be billable time, orange is like really fun thing I want to do. And if my calendar is all orange, well, then I'm not making any money and I better do something.
Yeah, it's like, ooh, we need to change this.
But I mean, you'd be surprised how many people that are consulting, well, it really even people at regular jobs, they don't have a sense of this. Like,
Yeah.
because green means I am doing something that I am getting money that's adding value for a customer. Because again, I don't consider software valuable until it's in the customer's hands. I'm like really fanatical about this. If it works on my machine, it's not. I don't care. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
you
no,
know.
that's a good mindset, and I think that's definitely something to associating the color green as I'm making money, and so it's kind of like a psychological trick on yourself that and to helping you manage that time. So I think that's a great bit of feedback. Yeah, we did have there's a couple comments about loving the color idea to help with the schedule and put the because I'm sure it does definitely does make a lot of sense for consultants in that space. But even if you're not in a consultancy, I'm sure managing your time well is always important to where you know that you're making money, but you also have that fun time. You also do still have some orange on your calendar.
For sure. Well, also, germane to the conversation about GDEs, knowing when to get help. Like a lot of times I'm working with cutting edge services from the Google Cloud platform, maybe even in beta or alpha. And I'm very good at time boxing, which is something that I see a lot of technical people have to work on because they sort of keep on grinding and grinding and grinding and like, okay, we're going to get it and da-da-da. Nope. If I've got a 15-minute or a half an hour or 1 hour time box, that's it. And then I'm going to go and do something different, get some help. I don't spend 8 hours stuck on something ever, because
That's
it just doesn't work.
definitely, yeah, that's a great mindset. Yeah, because otherwise you're just spinning cycles and you're repeating the same stuff over and over again, expecting it to work.
For sure.
So,
Well, the other thing is pairing. Even before the pandemic, I pair on most of my work. And the way I work is very intensely for 1 to 2 to maybe 3 hours at a time, pairing. And then the rest of the time is either researching, learning. It's not that I do everything paired, but I do a lot of things paired because it helps my focus. Because when I am accountable, and I'm usually paying the person I'm pairing with,
mhm.
that helps too, right? And the money's going out the door.
That is
Right. But I've just found it's a really good method of working for me. Now, that being said, I know some shops like pair 8 hours a day. No way, I couldn't do it.
oh, geez.
Yeah, I'm an introvert, and so after an hour or two, I have to go and like take a walk or something. And I think a lot of people that are in technology are introverts.
Yeah.
So I've heard this a lot that people who are forced to pair or group program, they get really like burnout or worn out or non-productive. So just the way that I work.
Yeah, definitely. That's great to hear and something to keep in mind for everybody. That's it's okay
Mm.
that, if you get the burnout, burnout is real, definitely, account for that, know your limitations, and, get that recharge in. So that's definitely a great point. I did want to ask you because Cloud Next was last week. So I did want to ask you some fun, interesting stuff that you thought came out of Cloud Next. So there was a lot of stuff that happened with Cloud Next last week over the last, it was a 3-day event. And so there was a lot of interesting announcements. What were your favorite things that came out of Cloud Next?
Yeah, I've been watching all the videos, and I'm trying to do some of the interactive stuff. So, one of my favorite GCP services is BigQuery. So anything that is enhanced to BigQuery, I just am like, okay, because almost all my customers have a use for BigQuery. So the DLP, the scanning for the PII information that's integrated now is fantastic. I am very, very interested in proper data security because more often than not, it's done incompletely or incorrectly or not at all. And it's just such a risk and, frankly, an embarrassment to our industry as a whole that I constantly am looking for anything that improves security, makes it easier. And on that same theme, I've been watching all the security videos from GCP Next, looking at all the security enhancements and what you guys are doing to make security more transparent, easier to use, the enhancements to the security command center, I think it's called the Salsa implementation or framework. I just really, really like the security improvements that I'm seeing across the platform because the more seamless you make it, the more it's going to be used and the more easy to use because it's sort of a problem across cloud. Security
Mhm.
is still not where it needs to be, and it gives kind of the industry a black eye. And it's not that the vendors aren't providing; it's that the people who are using the cloud aren't used to the cloud security paradigms and they're not implementing it consistently. We constantly see this file buckets are exposed with PII, and it's embarrassing. I mean, we shouldn't have that anymore. So any improvements in security, I'm like on 100%. I'm trying to understand so I can educate and share. Because again, this should be in the Google vernacular a solved problem, but it's not.
Definitely.
It's not. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I looked at that. Gosh. Yeah, because I wrote down. So I have a lot of like the data encryption was really big. The key, the KMS, the EKM, where you can split the trust for the EKM. That's
Okay.
really cool because I've got fintech customers that they're have been trying to make their own solutions, and the fact that that's just available in the platform. The integration with Cloud Armor into Security Command Center, and the improvements in reCAPTCHA Enterprise for the bots and the fraud. Again, I'm getting pretty in the weeds here, but you can tell I was actually really watching this and
Yeah.
the Apogee stuff for API protection because I have a lot of scenarios with APIs. So yeah, I'm like, oh, I love all these security things. I'm sure there's
Definitely.
more, but those are the things that grab me.
Definitely, and no, and that's what makes this real. And everybody takes something a little bit different away from any event, and so that's great to hear. How excited you were about all of the security enhancements that we've done to Google Cloud Platform and the various products that are underneath. So yeah, so calling those out as here's new exciting security things on why you should look at GCP. Pay attention to this. It's not just, and also calling out that that the whole security paradigm is cloud is okay with security, but it's really the developers who are building apps on the cloud that really need to focus and understand security because it's only as secure as the developer builds it, kind of thing. And
Exactly.
so,
Exactly.
but that's also having better tools for developers is definitely very important. We do have a couple questions that we did jump ahead a little bit, but to jump back, we did have a question from about the time boxing idea that you were talking about, how to manage your time a little bit better. So from let me bring this up here. So Sosu Alfred, hopefully I'm saying your name correctly. Uh, getting to understand time boxing. Are there any apps that you currently use to help with this, or any
Yeah,
methodologies?
there's tons of apps. There's tons of free apps and timers, and I had one group I worked with where they had this app where it was for mob, and it's a mob timer. You'd sign on, and then at the time you'd switch, and the screen would blank out and everything. Honestly, I kind of find them distracting, so I seriously just use the timer on my phone.
So just keeping it really, really easy.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
mentally, you're green boxing and light green boxing
Yeah,
mentally,
yeah. I
or
mean,
okay,
another technique is randori, which is just, like 20 minutes on, 5 minutes off, and you have to physically get up and get away from the screen. So it's a combination of those two things. So I might say like, okay, we're going to work on X. I'm not sure how to do it, and I just want to see if I can get it to work. We're going to do it for 45 minutes. And if I can't get it to work, then we're going to stop. Because I'm doing a lot of evaluation of new services. And I look at it as if the service is not to the point where I can't get a hello world in half an hour, 45 minutes, I'm not using it because it's not mature enough, which is a little harsh, but I
yeah,
mean, I'm a person who tries 100 different things, and if I can't get it to work, then what's the chances of a developer who's got a million other things? It has to be usable. It has to be not simple, but it has to be usable. I'm continually astounded, and I, trust but verify, right? Like I will, if I don't for anything I'm going to try out, I've got to try it, and I'm
yeah.
astounded at how many things don't work within that half an hour to 45 minute. I mean, they can be made to work, but they have all these hidden, idiosyncratic directions that aren't there or steps missing or whatever. And
Documentation.
right, right, right.
Yeah,
Well, I'm obviously a huge stickler on that. I mean, I've spent,
yeah.
many, many hours on going to GitHub and saying, by the way, if you added this one line, then people would use your thing.
Yeah, I can
Because
understand it.
yeah, yeah. And again, I'm not being judgy because I make software too, and
Yeah.
it's really hard to have beginner's mind. I think
Mhm.
that's I'm sorry I'm going around on this question, but that's kind of the key to it is to have beginner's mind. And if you don't, hire somebody who does.
There you go. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, that does kind of astound me, just to call back on the Hello World example that you gave, where if you can't spin up a Hello World for the technology that you're using in under 30 to 45 minutes, I mean that's huge.
Oh, I have
uh,
to tell you, so in bioinformatics, because the data sets are so huge from, genomics, I tech reviewed this book way back when. And initially the book Hello World was 8 hours. And I
oh my
was
goodness.
like, I had a big argument. Now, okay, I'm not a bioinformatician. Maybe I'm just, not understanding the domain, but I was like, do you want anyone to use those tools? And it failed like half the time, right? And
Oh
it was,
wow.
and the book was like, run it again. And I'm like, no, you need
Yeah,
to
that's
make
another
something.
day.
Yeah, you need to make something simpler.
Yeah.
It's been interesting because, like, when I was in fintech, it was all about speed, right? But they have a lot of resources, so it's speed and volume. Ad tech is speed. In
Yeah.
bioinformatics, it's volume, and like the working with the cloud is now it's coming later into that industry, and so they're used to just waiting. I mean, I've had people are like, "Well, yeah, this takes 2 weeks," and I'm like, "What? What? You wait 2 weeks? Yeah. And does it give you a valuable answer? Well, sometimes." I'm like, no wonder it takes a year to publish a research paper.
That is, yeah. Way too long, way too long. I don't have patience for that. I'm a pretty patient person, but I don't have patience for that. We did have a question here from Daniel. Could you elaborate on best practices for pairing? So you mentioned, and I think this might go towards, since you mentioned, the more introvert side, or
Mhm.
kind of things like that. So we all know that there's different ways to do pairing, but maybe some best practices for introverts, and knowing when is okay to end the pairing, or
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, I feel very strongly about this because I think the industry is biased towards you will pair, you will because it's a safety measure. So I get that, because if one person has the code, that's a risk. So I'll answer the question, but I'll also say I have Medium blog posts about this, and I actually made a course on LinkedIn Learning where I demonstrate these concepts. It's called collaborative coding, and it's pairing and mobbing, and I have live. But I'll try to make it a quick answer here. So developing is a human activity. That's the sort of top level. And you have to be in the frame of mind to do it. Now, granted, I am a consultant, so that's a little bit different than somebody who has a day job. But even that way, when I start pairing, the first thing out of my mouth is, well, first of all, I turn on my camera. And it's very important because the range of human emotion, right? And the first sentence out of my mouth is, does this work for you to do this today? How is your day going? And if the person says, oh, something like, I don't know, my dog died, I had a horrible day, I'm like, well, we're going to cancel this. We're going to do it on a different day. Or I'm a little off today. Okay, well, would you like me to be the navigator, because you will have to then do less kind of concentrating, you're just typing more. Do you want to take a more passive role if you're mentally not as strong today? Like acknowledging how the person is feeling about working, and checking in, right? Checking in. Like one of the things that I do that's a little bit jarring with new apprentices is I don't like spend time on resumes and interviewing and stuff like that. I just go, let's work together. And that's, kind of a intimidating situation, right? And so I try to make it like really, really nice and say, I know this is weird, but this just works best for me. And, I hope it's okay with you. And, we're going to Google together because we won't know a lot of things. And this isn't a test of your knowledge. This is just to see how I kind of like set the frame basically of what I expect and then demonstrate that behavior, right? Like I pick a problem that I don't know, and then we will Google together. And so that's like a fun thing when I have somebody just out of college, because they can look at me because of my age and say, oh, it's going to be intimidating. But, in 5 minutes, we're both Googling. And I'm like laughing, oh, you Google faster than me. Good job.
Yeah. Oh, you found the answer. Great. Yeah.
Right. So, and then I'll try to retrospect at the end of pairing, a short retrospective that's focused on, where do we have successes? Try to find more successes, not so much on things that aren't, focus on the good, basically. And then see if we agree that we want to work again. And if people don't want to work in a pair, then sometimes I'll say, do you want to just work asynchronously? Do you want to keep a channel open and we can just work, and then you can ask me a question, I'll work on something else, which isn't really pairing. But again, just being, I call it like the spectrum of working collaborative coding, from, you just got an open channel to you're really actively working hard together, right?
Mm-hmm.
And really acknowledging the humanness in it, that it's not one size fits all. So I'm sorry that's a long answer, but obviously since I made courses about it, I feel strongly.
Definitely. No, and it's great to have your insights on it. And I think something that, is very important, especially in today's world when, due to the pandemic, we've all shifted to more of a virtual work pairing and working together. And there are some of us that, are used to working in the office and having, that connection, as you said, to where you're working together asynchronously even. And so I have heard that there is actually a service out there where there's a group of folks that can all join in on the same video call and work asynchronously together to keep each other on task, and just so that way that there's somebody there helping to hold you accountable to your task, because it is very difficult to try and maintain that level of focus while working from home and all the other distractions and stuff like that. So it's definitely
for sure. Well, to speak to that, I mean, just again, constant learning. Last night, just for the first time ever, it's on you. I jumped into the Minneapolis, where I live, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Google Cloud Student Study Jam.
Oh, fun.
And just because I wanted to see what it was like. And it was kind of like that. There was somebody kind of presenting, but then they had breakout rooms. And I didn't finish my quest. So I was so bummed because I got stuck on the last lab. I know I was actually working on it right before this. And I'm stuck, but it's an area that I'm not good on all the detail, which is exactly why you need to do this. And so I'm determined I have to finish it. But it was like that because there was, I think, about 30 people, and there was a breakout room for people who were like going a little slower. And then there was sort of the main room where it was kind of more quiet. Like, do you have the step? Okay. And it worked pretty well. It reminded me of way back when in college, way back when, where you sit around and have a study group.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah.
Just a couple few. But yeah, that's great to hear. And yeah, so anybody tuning in, we do have a couple more questions to hit, but yeah, anybody tuning in, if you're not already a part of these communities, we have the Google developer groups, we have the Google developer student clubs, which are based out of universities. So these are everywhere. We can have the links for those pop up here in a second, but these are communities that are still currently meeting virtually, and you can definitely tune in. Lynn was talking about a cloud course that everybody was taking together and learning from each other in this space, going through the same learning modules and quests. So it's very cool. I'm glad you had a good experience with it. Hopefully you can get through that last lab, and it's
Ah,
a tough one.
yeah, it's embarrassing because it's a basic. It's around setting up network load balancers correctly,
Mm,
but it's not something I do every day. I usually hire someone to do that. But again, as an architect, I want to get my hands in and I want to actually do. And then you guys, of course, keep adding new features around
yes.
security that I don't know. And so yeah, so I was like, darn it, I ran out of time. I had to shut off the lab to join this presentation.
Oh, well. Hopefully, talking through it here helps to. I was like, oh, a light bulb, and you can get back right into it.
Well, what I'm
Um,
gonna do is I have an apprentice and I'm gonna actually work with her. I'm gonna walk my talk because I was too many parts and pieces and I was like, okay, I need a person to help me focus. I was
there you
trying it
go.
one more time. Yeah. But I do like, and for your viewers that don't know, there's those quick labs where it's a Google Cloud Sandbox environment. This is something I didn't know. If you join this student developer group meetup, they give you credits, which is nice because I
Hmm.
think otherwise you have to buy it or something. But the
Hmm.
whole thing is nice because you don't have to put a credit card or anything. You just get these, time box labs that are like on for an hour or something like that. And of course they're gone, but it's great because it's great for experimenting and learning. I liked
Yes.
it.
Yeah. So with the credits, it does create, yeah, as you mentioned, the sandbox, and it's ephemeral. So once you're done with the lab,
Yep.
any code that you've put in there is deleted. So that way it frees up the resources, but it gives you that accessibility to a lot of the GCP services or products
Yep.
that don't have a free tier. So if you want to try out, like, learn
Exactly.
BigQuery, for example,
Yep.
because BigQuery doesn't have a free tier, so if you want to learn more about BigQuery, how to use it, how to do, this, what you learn this cool thing, and you want to try it out. So going with through a GDSC or a GDG group to on these cloud learning quests is a great way to get that free access to the learning
Mhm.
platform, but then also get free access to learn how to use BigQuery, for example.
Mhm.
And so one thing, kind of, you know, steering back a little bit towards Cloud Next, one of the things that came out of Cloud Next is Quick Labs is now rebranded to Cloud Skills Boost as the learning platform, and so that's the new direction that we're going. Which Google purchased Quick Labs a few years back, and so we've been absorbing Quick Labs into our suite of learning tools, and so that's where the Cloud Skills Boost is the new name for that learning platform, and where it's still all the same materials and all that. It's just a new name.
Cool. Well,
So
again, one of the things in leaving a trail is I make all these courses, like I was saying, on LinkedIn Learning, including some about Google Cloud Platform Essentials and Enterprise Essentials and Machine Learning Essentials. But I also make companion repositories on GitHub. And what I'm going to do when I finish my quest, my first one, is I have a repo called GCP Essentials on GitHub that has like companion scripts and more information about that course that I have on LinkedIn. It just is like kind of going beyond. And so, because I see that once people take that course, if they go that way, I mean, they wouldn't have to. They could go just right to the platform. But either way, they could do both, right? So I'm going to put information about tips that I have
mm,
figured out in terms of getting the most out of you guys' platform, because now of course it's like Pandora's box. I'm like, oh, look at all these interesting quests. Oh, I don't know that. Oh, I'm gonna have to do this. So I can see putting information on my GitHub repo about like how this would relate, or how the path I would take, or something. Just my
Nice.
learning, basically going through it.
Definitely, and we'll drop Lynn's GitHub here in a second. But so through this, and it's great to as a next step here. You mentioned with all of the learning stuff that all the learning materials that you've put together and content that you're sharing out there. This is your best practices towards becoming that cloud architect and understanding cloud as a platform that you can use to build software and apps on. And so can you talk a little bit about that learning towards becoming the cloud architect, so somebody who's interested in getting to that cloud architect space, because there's also a GCP certification for becoming a cloud architect as well. So can you help
Yeah,
walk through that?
it pays the most because it's the hardest. Let's just
Yeah.
be honest, right? And being a cloud architect, I get a lot of questions from people from various platforms of, how do you do that? How do you do that? And there is no substitute for experience. So cloud architect is a person who understands all the different parts of the cloud. And just to my example of this quest I'm stuck on, do I really have to know how to set up a load balancer? No, I don't. But do I really think I want to help me to be a better cloud architect? Yes, I do. Now, I can't know everything. I can't. You cannot know every technology. I mean, this is the infamous, I think you guys have all
Yes.
seen this, the Google Cloud services, right? In 3 words. And I mean, there's, I don't know how many now, hundreds, 100. Do you know how many services they are? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
I want to say there was 300 on that
right. I mean,
on that card.
I can't
So
have intimate knowledge. I'm not that smart
well,
of 300 cloud services, but I call myself a cloud architect who codes, and I think that's just a sort of a simple way, because what I do is I go in and I say, okay, like you guys put this in your core quest, so you think that having deep knowledge of this one area is important, so I'm not going to argue. Okay, I'm going to just figure it out, right? I might not have deep knowledge of some other thing, like a VPN, let's say, versus a network load balancer, but I'll go in real deep on a network load balancer because you guys have featured it, and I do have, every customer is going to have one probably. So I want to have deep knowledge in specific areas. And again, in the data platforms, it's going to be BigQuery, of course. In machine learning, TensorFlow, in batch compute or distributed compute, Spark, everything Spark. So I have like these certain areas where I'm going to go in more depth because they apply to the kind of architectures I'm usually building.
nice. And I was gonna say it makes sense to have these areas that you go deeper into for your knowledge base on and help to explain these to your customers. But it's also you kind of touched on understanding just what everything there is. So you don't have to be an expert in every single. You don't have to go down and don't quote me on it. I think there was 300 on there, but since we're using that as a number example, you don't have to go down the 300 pillars to understand everything. It's find the things that you're more passionate about and you want to help communicate to your customers, but then know that those other things exist, these other tools and services that are available in case your customer is looking for XYZ, that this is something that comes from Cloud Armor, like how
Right.
understanding that Cloud Armor is what they're looking for.
Well, the other thing, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about patterns when we talk about architectures and blueprints. And so, those things are not really ubiquitous, but distributed compute has been around for longer than me. And so one of the things that we do poorly in our industry is understanding and learning from our history and our elders, if you will. And so I do make an effort to read books on patterns, to understand patterns that have been used. And it could have been in completely different paradigms. It could be not even using the cloud. And sometimes those kind of books are really challenging. But I think it's important to understand the history, so you're not reinventing the wheel all the time. So it's this combination of looking back at the history and understanding what is available now, and getting depth in that by getting your hands dirty in it, and then marrying the two with elegant simplicity.
Definitely. Definitely. And that's also a challenge in and of itself, is getting everything to merge in simplicity. We do
Yeah.
have a question here from Harshita. Hopefully I'm saying the name correctly. You mentioned about the bioinformatics pipelines. Can you explain a little bit more what is bioinformatic pipelines? Based on the rest of the question here, what is the best approach to getting into that field as somebody who's interested in that field?
Thank you for asking. So, as is typical, I've left my journey on GitHub. The name of my bioinformatics subject area learning repo is Team Terry. Terry is my friend who got cancer and survived. And that is my cheat sheet to bioinformatics. Bioinformatics simplified, and if you're in the field, please forgive me here, is the analysis of genomic information. And it's, when it relates to human health, it's human genomic information. So that can be DNA or it can be RNA. And the analysis is complex because the bioinformatic collection processes are human. For example, one of my clients, the Broad Institute at MIT and Harvard, before they do the final check on human DNA, they check to make sure that there is no animal DNA in there, because they discovered that if you eat a ham sandwich, it will have pig DNA, and it's a contaminated sample.
Oh, wow.
I thought that was so funny. Anyway, so biological processes are messy, and they generate a huge amount of data. Also, the human genome is huge, 3 billion letters of DNA, and the computational processes for analyzing and finding variants is complex. Add to that, that sort of the new area is at the level of RNA, which is expressed next level down. And so single cell RNA has been really, really at the forefront. And it's it's what's happening in your body in the case of human, where you can have, this 3 billion letters, but for different cell types. So it's like, poof, there's a huge volumes of data. So I actually, working with the Broad, I created a version of my GCP Essentials course and made it open source. It's called GCP for Bioinformatics, and it includes the Broad's tools like the Genomic Analysis Toolkit and HAIL, along with other open source tools. The idea is to create a domain-specific GCP best practices repository. So GCP for Bioinformatics, and it has associated YouTube videos with it. So it's work that I'm really proud of, and has been used by the bioinformatics community more and more widely. So
Awesome. Very cool. And glad to see that, the work that, you did mention that, it was because of your friend that you became a lot more interested in it. And so through that research, you're able to turn that back around and help all of these other folks out there that, to understand, the bioinformatics. And do you, through this project, do you know of any, not to put you on the spot either, but do you know of any other societal impacts that has come
mhm.
from this? Oh, cool.
Yeah, I worked with a group in London, the Imperial College of London. They were doing Alzheimer's research with single cell RNA, and they wanted to use the Broad's tools. They were using a different platform in cloud, and I did some work with them actually before the pandemic, and they now have their pipeline, their analysis pipeline, running on the Broad's platform. It's called Terra.bio, which runs on Google Cloud and other clouds, and they're able to do their analysis more quickly. In bioinformatics, it's all about speeding up the analysis because it has to be reproducible for human health. And if they can get their answers back more quickly, it's more useful. So that's one. I mean, there's actually a lot of them. COVID impacts as well. I worked with another group out in California this last year to help to analyze COVID variants to help to do response in the United States. So, there's a lot of human health issues out there. Making it
For
faster
sure.
with the Google Cloud is super satisfying.
That's awesome. That's amazing to hear. And thank you for your contribution back to helping, scientists and everyone understand this data a little bit more. Because as you mentioned, it was 3 billion characters or 3 million characters.
Billion with a B.
Billion, yes,
Yeah,
with a
yeah,
B. Yeah, so
yeah.
3 billion characters and all of the variants that lie within that. That's an impressive feat to try and understand that whole concept. I do know we are coming up on 5 minutes left in the show. If there's any final questions, please ask them now in the chat. I tried to do a quick scan to see if there's any other questions, but if they are typing in right now, we'll let them type that in. But Lynn, I wanted to thank you so much for joining us. Is there any final parting uh, information that you'd like to share about cloud architects, the cloud innovators, GDE? Where should somebody get started? I'll let you.
Sure. I'm the lifelong learner, so you have to ask me, Lynn, what are you learning now? And so I
Oh,
can
yes.
answer.
What are you learning next?
Quantum programming.
Quantum programming.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So where are you getting started with that?
I just finished a book club with non-quantum developers, and the playlist is on YouTube. And of course, I have a Learning Quantum repo on GitHub with all of my resources. And I am working on some more materials that'll be available in 2022 that are detailing my journey into understanding quantum computing. And I really am interested in it for what we just talked about, for making bioinformatics pipelines even faster and even more accurate with the power of QPUs. So in the Google platform, that's the Circ libraries, and I'm using Colab's platform, Jupyter Notebook platform, to learn. But yeah, anybody that's interested in coming along in my quantum journey, join on in, because there's lots to learn.
Awesome. Yes, it is. And it's a new developing emerging topic, I guess I should say, because the concept has been around for a while, but there's a lot more interest in it, especially after with cloud computing getting closer to that quantum state of quantum computing. So it's very interesting. And yes, I know I will definitely be following along in your learning journey with that. And I know we've shared many links. So yeah, we have Lynn's dev.2, her Twitter account. We've shared her GitHub. So there's many other opportunities for you to follow along with Lynn's learning journey. So and definitely reach out if you have additional questions for Lynn. I wanted to thank you again so much for joining us today, sharing your story, and helping everyone here understand how to get into being a cloud architect and kind of demystifying a lot of that information.
And Kyle, I have one last thing.
Oh, sure.
Since you are moving to a different role within Google,
Yes.
on behalf of the GDEs, I want to thank you for all of your work to grow the GDE community. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's meant a lot. And yeah, so that was kind of going to be part of my sign off here today as well, letting everyone externally tuning in. If you don't know already, this is my final episode with Between the Brackets. And so it is meant a lot having everyone that we've had on in the past, and the GDE community, being a part of that for so long has been great. And so it's great to hear on that, that the work that I've been doing was appreciated. We have some jokers backstage. So yes, it is very sad. I definitely will miss interfacing with the community a lot more, but thank all of you for tuning in, and thank you, Lynn, and the GDE community for all the work that all of you do to help continue to educate developers out there in the world. So it's much appreciated from this side as well. So thank you on that as well. And so with that, we are at time. So thank you all for tuning in to this month's episode of Between the Brackets. I hope you enjoyed learning about becoming a Google Cloud architect and where to learn more about Google Cloud platform as much as I did. Thank you for tuning in. And thank you, Lynn, for joining me today. and along with Danny and Medusha backstage, who are clicking all the buttons and making sure everything runs on time. So join us again next time as we dive beyond the dev docs. It won't be me next time, sadly, but we will have a new host joining, Danny Thompson, who many of you in the community might be aware of. So we will have him joining for our future episodes. Make sure you subscribe to never miss an episode. And if you haven't registered on our website yet, make sure to do so that way you know about future topics and you can find all of our past episodes. And don't forget to fill out our episode survey. Let us know what you thought about the episode, as well as what you would like to see in future episodes. So again, thank you all of you for tuning in, especially for my last episode. And thank you so much, Lynn. It was great having you. Yeah, I think it's kind of a nice little baton exchange where the first GDE is saying bye on my last episode. So thank you again. And thank you all for tuning in. It was a great episode. So we'll see you all next time on Between the Brackets. Thank you so much. Cheers.